Hey, welcome to Black Ibis Social Club. I'm your host, Alexander Constantine, and my co-host, Fistoso Bunny, is here. And we had another
Hello
great,
there.
hey, what's up, man? We had another great week of, I don't know, doing nothing and just chilling. Last week we had a great episode with Dr. Zachary Porco, which I recommend you go back and listen to if you've missed it. But all our episodes are great, I think. But once again, welcome to everyone's favorite conversation podcast on Substack, the Black Ibis Social Club. Today, you know what we decided to do our monthly, and we're actually behind on this. We're actually behind our monthly,
Yeah, we
just me and
really are.
Fisto. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, man?
Well, we haven't done it in a while. We were supposed to do these every month, but I think we skipped May altogether, or did we?
Yeah. I think yeah, we skipped May, somewhat ironically because it was related to the topic that we're going to discuss today. But I had
Right,
a
right.
back in May, it was the end of my school year, and we had a big event at school where I basically ran the kitchen, or at least the wait staff, so to speak, and kicked my own ass. So when I got to podcast time, it was like, yeah, I'm going to bed. I was absolutely smoked. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, but whoa, I remember how badly I overdid it. So that's why we ended up skipping. Basically, listener, I'm trying to tell you it was for the children. So don't give
Right,
us too hard of a time. We were helping the children's eat hamburgers and hot dogs. So
oh,
you can't really judge me too harshly, I think.
right. And
But
and
anyway,
then and we decided to hold off for a week, and then a bunch of family stuff happened on my end, and then you did some traveling to Ohio, and
yeah,
now you're
yeah,
back. So we're getting a chance to catch up on stuff. So
yeah.
before we go into the topic of educating the youth, which is the main topic of today, what's going on in the discourse, man? What is going on in the
Substack
Substakistanian
discourse.
discourse? Anything interesting? Because I don't know.
Well, I mean, generally speaking, it's kind of the same old stuff. I've noticed an uptick in the need to rebuke via the old "shut up, retard." Um, there's this thing I've been noticing. It's like the I don't quite know what to call it, and I'm sure somebody who studies these things a lot more closely than I do has already come up with a term. But there's like this brand of posting where it's it's very clearly a made up story meant to virtue signal, mentioned to signal support of the quote unquote current thing. And like the only way I can think of these things is, and then Obama clapped. Like these are the
Oh
Obama
yeah,
clapped
right.
stories. Like there was
Like
one
the
today where somebody was talking about like this lady at Home Depot who was, stood up against ICE and they ran away at her furious visage as if it was like Gandalf the Grey battling with, the black riders on Weathertop. Like, no, that didn't happen. It didn't happen. There's no details, there's no evidence. It's just here's this story that, you know, dumb people will click like on. And there's another one that I found was very interesting, and this I think is actually probably worth discussing a little bit or bringing to people's attention, mostly because it was the subject of a piece by the CEOs and head honchos at Substack. I'm looking for the article right now. I don't know if you saw this, but
oh no.
apparently, yeah, no, apparently there was a guy named Alistair Kitchen who he's from Australia and he had written some things and according to him, he flew to the United States, was stopped at the border, was interrogated for many, 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 many hours, and then was sent back to Melbourne. And they wrote an article. I'm looking up. This is from Hamish Mackenzie. Standing up for free speech, even at the border. Fair enough. Okay, sure, whatever. We talk about, hey, Substack's going to stand up for free speech and this and that and the other thing. But the thing is, I read Kitchen's article. He's got a piece explaining his experience over at, I believe it's the New Yorker,
Hmm.
and which is already suspect, right?
Right, right.
But there's I haven't been able to find any evidence that this happened besides his own testimony. And then what's happening with it is other people are citing his article, and then that's they're doing that echo chamber thing where somebody writes something, kind of like what happened with Substackers Against Nazis. somebody writes a hit piece, and then that hit piece gets cited as the evidence for the thing that they, evidence for the narrative that they wish to push. But like, this one in particular, I mean, I know there's a lot of debate around free speech on, hey, what right do foreigners have in the United States and so on and so forth. Whatever you think about that stuff, fine, whatever. The reason I'm bringing it up though is the fact that it was highlighted by the CEOs and the big bosses of Substack, but again, there's no evidence it happened. And
Right.
listen to the beginning of the article here and tell me if this seems correct or if this seems, plausible. Many people are detained at US airports for reasons they find arbitrary and mysterious. I got lucky when I was stopped by Customs and Border Protection last week. After flying to Los Angeles from Melbourne, a border agent told me explicitly and proudly why I'd been pulled out of the customs line. Quote, look, we both know why you're here, end quote, the agent told me. He identified himself to me as Adam, though his colleagues referred to him as Officer Martinez. When I said that I didn't, he looked surprised. Quote, it's because of what you wrote online about the protests at Columbia University, end quote, he said. Everybody clapped. Obama was there. It's like, really? Really? Like,
That's such absurd bullshit, Ray. I
a
mean, look,
customs agent is going to pull you out and say that straight. Hey, say that straight to your face. And then, apparently the official story is that he lied on his, whatever paperwork you need to do to get into the country. And he claimed that he didn't do drugs, but he actually had done drugs. So they booted his ass. That might have only been pretext. I mean, I'll allow that. But yeah, like you said, wait, what?
well,
He
like,
asked if I was friends with any Jews. He asked for my views on a one versus two state. What? No, he
okay,
didn't.
okay. So TSA
Anyway.
agents are like barely above minimum wage dudes, and like half of them are like fat old Mexican ladies,
Well, to be fair, it says Customs and Border Protection last week, but you're probably correct. It's probably not too, these are cousins to TSA, right?
Right, right.
At least in the
And
airports.
yeah, and ultimately, right, like we're talking about international travel, right, where millions of people probably fly in and out of the United States on the daily, right?
Yeah.
And we're talking about an agency that has to, so that means that somewhere there's a computer program or somebody watching, purchases of tickets and visa approvals, right? I mean, first of all, you don't even, I don't believe you even need the visa to enter from Australia into the United States, right? With an Australian passport. Um, and there's probably, thousands of people doing this every day. And somewhere his name had to gotten flagged enough to alert some higher level, customs people to bring stuff and ask these questions in the 24 hours it takes from the time he got on the plane in Australia to here. I mean, that right there is absolutely absurd. It's a fantasy of a self-important jerk off, I mean, realistically, what could he have written? What could he have written? It's who is he? Is he exposing what? He's writing about some jerk off like fucking protests at some shitty college, like who gives a shit? Nobody gives a shit about that, you know what I mean? Right? Like
Yeah.
what a like ridiculous fantasy, right? Like
Yeah.
and that's kind of the mindset of some of these guys is that they really think that they're fucking important, where it's like, come on, dude. You went to a protest with Palestinian flags because you wanted to bang chicks, dude. That's the only reason anybody ever goes to those. All right.
The thing that caught me too is like you said, like they're acting like they're super important. And like, well, now the guy's going, on the talk circuit and oh, woe is me and check out this horrible story, this horrible thing that happened to me. And there's a detail in there that made me laugh. Apparently, the kid, his own story, his own testimony, he handed over his cell phone and he gave the password to the border custom guy so they could look through his phone. Dude, you're an Australian citizen. What
Right.
the flip that around? I'm in Australia and they want to see my phone. I'm saying you can either eat my ass or call the embassy. I'll leave it up to you. Like
Right.
that's and it would just be that would be it. Like what kind of dissident or what kind of revolutionary worth his salt doesn't know like that basic rule? No, I'm not turning over my password. Absolutely not. Like you're gonna have to kill me. Like no, I'm not doing it. I want to talk to the embassy. I want the embassy right now. Whatever you got to say. I don't even know what the right thing to say is, but I know it's not. Yeah, here's my password, man.
Yeah.
I hope I'm not in trouble, officer. Come on, bro. Really? And
Right.
even if it is on the up and up, it's just the kind of guy you want to like celebrate is like, oh man, look at all this great work dude, he made like basic bitch mistakes.
Right. Like these
Come on,
guys
man.
are
His
these guys
password
are
was probably
children,
password.
man. These
Yeah.
guys are children. They're living an extension of the boomer 50s and 60s fantasy, the forever revolt.
No.
And their greatest fantasy is that whatever American regime or whatever is this like oppressive fascist regime that asks you for your papers or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's like, dude, shut up, dude. Like, nobody gives a shit that you wrote about some protest that nobody gives a shit. It's like nobody cares.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it links to a bit about what the early 20th century, the early 21st century, excuse me, the early 21st century is really about. And it is very much just narrative management and the stories everybody wants to hear. And like, even the thing with Iran, I don't necessarily want to get into the Iran bombing because my God, everybody's talked about that at length. But even that feels like off. Like our default reaction, I saw somebody writing about this. Our default reaction to all things these days, I think it was Chris Bray actually. Um, our default reaction to things these days is ridicule. It's to make fun of it. It's to poke fun at it. It's to make jokes. It's, like there's a post I made earlier today, and I think this kind of sums up what I'm trying to say. I've heard it said that Albert Einstein wasn't sure what weapons we'd fight World War III, but what World War IV would be is sticks and stones. It's shit talking, Albert. We're fighting it with enough shit talk to blot out the sun.
yeah, it's
I mean,
memes,
that's
dude.
it's memes, it's jokes, it's this and that, and it's just it again reminds me of when I read stuff about the Spanish Civil War and like all the stories that got made up and like all the different things, and it's just all fucking propaganda, which kind of makes you wonder, like, man, how much has everything else been propaganda? It's interesting to me because I remember the first Gulf War. I'm sure you do too, or
Right,
and the second Gulf War. Like those things were managed stage productions of the highest caliber with all the media on side and everybody, especially after 9/11, everybody was on the same goddamn side. You know what I mean?
right,
Now you've got to flip it around, and it's just the more confused everyone is, the better. Like, do you feel that too? Like that there's almost this mirror Black Lodge, White Lodge kind of realm that we've stepped into, and most people either don't recognize it, can't recognize it, or are happy to play the game.
right. Well,
What do you think?
well, exactly. It's like, something happens and the first reaction is like, oh, there's news happening. It's like my first reaction, I was like, is it faking gay? And you look at it, yeah, it's probably faking gay, you
If you
know?
have to ask, it is.
Yeah, and it always like, it feels like the people at work are like, oh, well, what do you think about this? And I'm like, dude, it's faking gay, I don't care. And
Yeah,
then it just disappears out of the news in 24 hours because, well,
everybody
guess what? It's
forgets.
faking gay and nobody cares.
Yeah,
It's like, hey guys, we're gonna bomb you. Make sure all your stuff's safe. Okay, cool. Boom, we bombed you. Oh, rah, rah, rah. And then
oh,
they
why
call
you bomb
back,
me,
oh,
man? Come
we're
on.
gonna bomb your base. Okay, make sure you evacuate it. Cool, bomb. And it's like it's kabuki theater and it's like it's embarrassing and I just don't want to I don't even like you're retarded to be into it. It's
Yeah.
like it's worse than like it's like if like in the middle of a WWF matches work because like the fun of it is that like everybody knows it's fake, right? Everybody knows it's fake except for like 4-year-olds, right? 4-year-olds and like the retarded like tweaker Cletus from like fucking Alabama or whatever, right? But
I was just reading Librarian of Solano's latest article where he's talking about the Iran thing, and he immediately segues into Ali Vaziri, the Iron Sheik.
right, right.
And it's like yes, it's just a history lesson on the Iron Sheik and talking about. I haven't finished it yet, but clearly making the same. What was the subline here? The age of Kafabi. Like, yeah,
Right,
it's
right.
all just here
But the
we are.
thing is, though, WWF works because while everybody knows it's fake, everybody takes it seriously and pretends it's
Well,
real,
yeah, it's entertaining.
right?
There's drama. Like they tell a good story. It doesn't. It's like It's like all those people talking about like all the movies back in the 90s who had like black leads and female leads, and they're like, what's the thing all these movies had in common? Yeah, they didn't fucking suck. That's what they
Right.
had in common. They were all
But
freaking awesome.
yeah, now it feels like everything like is fake. Everybody knows it's fake,
This is
but like
bad. It's just bad.
half the people have
Bad.
stopped even pretending that it's like, like they're just like, yeah, yeah, okay, World War III again. Yes, guys, the atomic clock is doomsday clock is like 0.2 seconds away
Point
from,
0.1 second. Actually, it's now a minute past midnight. You just don't know it yet.
yeah, shut
Come
up.
on.
Nobody gives a fuck. Shut up. You
Shut up,
know?
retard. Shut up, retard.
It's like not with the point where like we're it's so messed up that we kind of want it. We're like, okay, come on, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that
Just
is it. Like, yo, everybody get their hit, right? It's like the internet has turned into this degenerate monkey orgy. And at the end of the day, like y'all get your like, yeah, man, I got my like. Okay, cool. All right, let's get the vacuums in here and mop up and we'll get ready because the new thing's coming down the pipe in the next 20 minutes.
yeah, you gotta wait
Like
48 hours to post the next thing. Okay,
yeah,
we
right.
gotta
Because
give us gotta get a chance to make the memes before it happens.
yeah, you got to get ahead of those 48-hour rule guys too, because you need to keep throwing stuff at them so they never have, you know, by the time any real information is coming out, everybody's already moved on to the next thing. And then you got guys like us who actually want to try to understand something going, son of a bitch.
Yeah, we can't keep up with it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
tedious.
You can't keep up with it by design. Absolutely.
I mean, I
So,
haven't. I honestly haven't been doing much like on the internet, to be honest. Been
no, that's
working on
good.
working on the novel a bit more,
Oh, cool,
um,
man.
and you know, calling out frauds on the internet, that type of thing.
Speaking of which, I really enjoyed that post, and I wanted to throw out here we can segue into things that are not fake. Would you prefer to hear? I would like to tell you about my first experience at Orthodox liturgy, or we could talk about Lord of the Rings, or we can do a third thing, and you can just do the Alex thing where you dislike both.
Well, let's talk about your first experience at Orthodox liturgy. Okay, but
Yeah,
let's preface it, and I tie it into
yeah,
my post,
absolutely.
right?
Yes,
So
and that's what I was hoping you would
yeah,
do.
the post
Yes, sir.
the post I wrote, right, and it's a little bit aggressive, and it's the Matthew 7:15, beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves, right? Look, on the internet, you can be whoever you want, all right?
Yes, sir. No one knows you're
And
not a dog.
like I think I was being very ironically funny that I invented my fake female persona yesterday at the same time I posted that post, and I was hoping people connected the two, because it was a very like I thought I was being exceptionally tongue in cheek, and really the only person that came close to getting it was Dave Green with that Twitter comeback, which I thought was pretty funny, right?
Dave,
But
yeah, Dave was if you ever listen to this, I hope this is this episode. That was very funny. It was very self-referential and both
self-referential and funny, yeah.
somewhat somewhat self-depreciating. Like it was perfect.
Because that was kind of my target.
Nice.
That was kind of my target, but not. But
You're
it was
sitting there
close
secretly
enough.
hoping Dave Green. I hope he sees this. This is for you, senpai.
Yeah, but yeah. No. So, anyways, for people
Awesome,
that did not see my little
fantastic.
note, right? My point, the point of my note was I basically told people to shut up, right? And specifically people that are posting about religion, specifically the Orthodox religion, right? And here's the thing: we talk about the Orthodoxy. We
Yeah,
invite people to talk about orthodoxy,
of
right?
course.
But we
Talk
do
about
not
anything.
talk
Absolutely.
authoritatively. Everything
No,
I
never.
say is like either my experience or things I know that were taught to me or I read through the words of the people that taught it to me. And I'm going to try to make this clear. The Orthodox Church is not Protestantism, right?
No,
It is not an auto diktat kind of like thing.
no,
It is
no.
about
It is.
being
Oh
part of
my
a
gosh.
group of
Yeah.
and we do not speak about it without without keeping in mind that we are representing all of us, and we're also representing priests and bishops and holy fathers and our, just everybody, just the whole going back to the year 30, and that's the level of authority that you hold on your shoulder. And you can't just be some dude or female and, decide to just start giving, authoritative opinions on, telling me, okay, let me rephrase this. There's people on goddamn Substack that are claiming to be part of the church who are not, right?
Yeah,
and
not.
it was immediately clear to me, right, that this person, after I was actually like kind of interested. So I was like, hey,
Yeah,
you ever want to come on a
absolutely.
podcast, you're more than welcome one day, right? And this person actually was like, oh, I don't know. I don't really know much, And I'm like, well, what do you keep on posting all like authoritative? You're giving the impression that you've been like, in the church for at least a decade or more, And
Yeah.
then I keep on looking at the post and I'm like, wait a second, this person's a complete and total fraud because their verbiage and their language and their theological opinions that she is right now expounding on and teaching people and engaging with people from the giving them the perception that she is a member of the church, right? And I was like, hey,
Right.
so are you a member of the church? Like, as in, are you baptized and chrismated? Do you have a priest? Do you have a church that you actually go to? Are you, and then she refused to answer. And I was like, come on, I have to ask you,
Uh,
And then she
huh.
refused to answer. And I was like, well, I'm not being a dick here, but, you do represent me and everybody else, right? And I'm
Yeah.
kind of
Right.
weary of your opinions. And I kind of want to know, like, you know, what you're getting at here, right? And then she refused to answer and kept on, kind of beating around the bush and accusing me. Then I get messages from people privately. They're like, yeah, she's not, she came to our church once and like we haven't seen her since and blah, 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 So I'm like, okay, you're a scammer and you're using the church to, basically make money on Substack, right? And I can't have that. You know what I mean? We can't have
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Like once again, it's not a free country when it comes to the church, right? It's like
Yeah.
it's not.
It's influencer posting. It reminds me of two other people. One of them I'll mention by name only because I think he actually was legit. But there's like a style of posting where you speak authoritatively about a subject, but it's just like there was one poster a while back who's got big into like buying farmland and talking about farming and this and that and the other thing. And then there were actual farmers who were trying to grill them on the details, and there's just not a lot of discussion. And actual real farmers are like, dude, you're full of shit. Like you clearly have no idea what you're doing. You put up a pretty face, some pretty photos, you talk farmy, but like dudes who are like, my hands are literally filthy from working in fields all day. That's why I didn't respond to this earlier. Like those kinds of guys. Um, and then the other type, Coleman, remember him from a while back, the prison guy?
Yeah, I remember
Um,
that guy. Yeah.
I mean, the only two reasons I think he was legitimate is because I actually looked up his case and it matched everything that he freaking was talking about. And the guy also deleted his Substack and left. So like clearly like wasn't I mean I don't know what that guy's thing was ultimately, but like it got the vibe of real. But there is an internet style of influencer posting where
Right.
it's there's a theme, there's a ethos, there's a direction that they're trying, and it never actually really goes anywhere. It's just enough to get you to click,
Right.
and maybe get to the subscribe button at some point. But I
And
mean, I don't know.
it ultimately is my thing is that like for the most part I don't care. I mean the
Yeah.
entire writing community is this, right? I mean, how many writing Substacks we have, and none of the people actually have any books.
Right. Yeah.
Let me give you my writing advice. What book you write? Well, I'm working. Shut up, then. Like, like I never heard okay, like I don't know if you're Bret Easton Ellis, I'll listen to your writing advice,
Yeah.
but like or like I think the only one of the only worthwhile writing blogs on Substack is Chuck Palahniuk's blog because I don't know I've read Fight Club, and I've read
Yeah, I think that guy wrote a couple books, right? I
yeah,
think I think I think didn't
he's
they make a movie? I feel like there was a very
yeah.
famous movie with somebody in it that I
Yeah,
know.
exactly. So I care, but for the most
Yeah.
part, I'm not going to go around and be like, "Oh, well, what book did you write, bro?" And that kind of shit,
Brad
right?
Pitt. I think that was the guy. Brad Pitt. Oh, Brad Pitt. Sorry.
But one
Yeah.
of those guys,
Anyway, yes, somebody.
not
Anyway,
a real famous dude. But
nah.
Yeah, for the most part, like I don't care about that kind of stuff, right? But we're talking about, people's salvation and their immortal souls and that type of thing, right? And to a certain degree, it's like, yeah, you kind of got to engage with that. You got to kind of call it out. And I think what's important, right, is that anonymous people on the internet are fine. It's okay to listen, to read their articles, to follow their stuff, but you have to keep in mind that not everybody is what they seem, right? A lot of
Right.
people are just a wolf dressed like grandma.
Yeah.
Right. And that we have to make sure that when people are speaking authoritatively about a topic, that I think the people should prove who they are, to a certain degree, or at least have a body of work that speaks for itself, right? You can be
Yeah.
anonymous, but you must have a body of work that speaks for itself, that can be referenced. And that's kind
Like
of the
Librarian or John Carter, like those
correct.
guys, like that's clearly something.
Correct. And
For
neither of
sure.
those guys are telling you, how to save your immortal soul or anything like that. And
Yeah,
they're
they're
not
dudes
claiming to be
talking
part
about
of
stuff.
they're not claiming to be part of a 2,000-year-old organization of millions of people and speaking authoritatively on that topic. Like, listen, like I understand people's enthusiasm about, faith and religion or any of these things, right? But, but here's the thing, okay? Shut up. Okay. If you really are
Yeah.
enthusiastic about your faith and your religion, the number one thing you should be doing is going to church and being quiet. All right. Matter of fact,
Yes.
if you really
Yeah.
care about religion, best thing you can
Yeah.
do right now is just
Yep.
delete the internet
Yeah.
and get
I
off.
uh I completely agree with that. And that's one of the things that I loved about going, it was the first time I went to church. This past Sunday was the first time I've been to church in decades. And my wife and I went, and everybody was incredibly friendly, incredibly welcoming. It was easy just to, I was just a visitor. I spectated, right? I participated a little bit here, as far as like crossing myself and like the standing up and standing down, standing up and standing down, like the basic stuff. I mean, clearly we were like just little babies, like rolling around in the nursery. And it was great. It was quiet. It was contemplative. I felt like, I mean, this isn't going to surprise you, but it felt real, man. It felt like
Right.
the first real It felt like one of the first real religious experiences I've ever had in my life. And it was awesome. I mean, we've been thinking about it all day. Like we've been thinking about it all week. Today we went for a drive. So the church, you'll love this. It's a tiny, tiny little thing off the beaten path, not too far from where I live. And it's got this nice big grove with like a walking path and then a couple of icons and a real nice spot, like basically out in the swamp where you can just do whatever it is you feel like doing. And we just stopped by there today. We're like, oh, we're gonna pass. Let's just swing in there and go walk out to the swamp monastery part and just hang out for a while. Dude, I've never done that. And
Right.
it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Like it was really great. And I'm looking forward to going back next week. It's just like, oh man, Sunday, man, is it Sunday yet? Dude, I've never done that. What the hell?
Right.
It's cool, man. I'm digging it. I'm excited to go back and check it out. And I think it's because it's, you know,
It's real.
I'm pretty sure the monk that runs the place has never even heard of the internet. All right, that's kind of where I'm at.
Because
So anyway,
I mean that's amazing, and
yeah, it really was.
that's the thing. It's like the internet is great. The internet is a great tool for us to have great conversations and that kind of stuff. But it cannot be our main guidance. It
It
can
is
give
not
us.
life.
Yeah, it is not life. It is not life,
No,
and it's not participation. It's like this podcast we're doing, listening and being part of it, for example, is a step above the internet because it is
yeah,
a much more
yeah,
participatory, right? But even us,
yeah,
listening to us is not living life. You should be doing
no,
this as a supplement. It's ultimately, we are still an entertainment product, right? Even though we
yeah,
might recommend some great books or something or give some good ideas, we're still
yep,
an entertainment product. Um,
yep,
and you should treat us as such by giving us money through subscriptions. But
no,
uh, real talk, you need to go out there and live. You cannot be a Christian or like an Orthodox Christian or Catholic or whatever on the internet. God doesn't
no,
dwell on the internet, bros. Okay,
no.
you're
Probably
not
stays, yeah, no, probably
you're
stays
not
very far
scoring
away from it.
you're not scoring, points towards heaven by posting on the internet, whether it's like good stuff or bad stuff or whatever,
Right.
it's not real. It's just entertainment. It's just scandalous. And that's all it really is. Uh,
Yeah.
you can enjoy a fantastic amount of like great, material on the internet from people, but
Yeah.
you have to go back to school, like in your seventh grade class or whatever. When you probably remember this when we were little, when we were going to school, and like the internet first came out.
Yeah.
You know, people were like, well, you
Yep.
got to get sources. You got to verify your sources. You
Yeah. You got to go
have
down to that
to.
one computer in the library that's connected.
You have to, okay? If you're gonna like take like theological concepts and ideas, it better be from a website where there's a picture of whoever's writing or a video, and it's like, like a good example would be like, Dr. Zachary Porku, right? He's a
Yeah.
catechist, he literally is part of the church in an authoritative position to bring people into the church, right?
Right.
So what
Yeah.
he says, what he's teaching is correct because a bishop actually brought him into that position, right?
Yeah.
So there's courses for that for catechists run by the seminaries, and that's what they do. He's also got a PhD, and he has been his work has been officially
Yeah. The
like sanctioned by a priest and a bishop and that type of thing.
Yeah, the authority doesn't come from the credential. The authority comes from the participatory work that has been done. Things
Right.
that have been done, not like the things I read or the things I wrote or no stuff I have done. I have shown, or I don't want to speak for him, but in my mind, I see it. I would only be able to say those kinds of things or speak authoritatively if you know, I had receipts. Like I did it. Like talking about my school stuff. I've only been in there for 3 years, a little over 3 years, but I've done it. So I do have some experience. I have some participatory insight into how all that stuff works. So, all that's just to say, yes,
Right. And
you are correct.
this little like kerfuffle, this little tiff, made me
Yeah.
think that like even on the
Yeah.
even on the nominally right wing or conservative at parts of the internet, even the right wingers are so poisoned by secular liberalism that we
Right.
we forget that it is not about you. Fundamentally, individualism is not a right wing concept because an individualism is should be subsumed by tradition and by authority and by hierarchy. Those are core right-wing concepts, right? And a lot of these younger people just need to realize, shut the fuck up. All right.
Yeah.
You
I
might have
think,
a valid point, but it's not your place to say it at this time. You have to work your way up the hierarchy. You have to have the receipts. You have to have the honor and the station and the responsibility. That is the right wing way to do things. Okay.
yeah.
We don't just shout our opinions. If we just sit there and shout our opinions and that's what I believe, nobody cares what you believe. Okay, go over to the lefties and go put on your pink hat and rage against the machine or whatever, in Times Square or and graffiti stuff. Right.
Yeah.
That's if you want to voice, if you want your voice to be heard, go over there and shout among the masses of mutants and freaks and degenerates. Right.
All of this boils down, you want your voice to be heard. All of this boils down to the ultimate reality, to the ultimate fact where, and everything flows from this. Alex, is the tomb empty?
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
that that matters. That is going to have some implications. I don't know about all of my listeners. I don't know all about all of our listeners, everybody I've ever talked to in my life, but I am not aware of a single individual who was able to uh, beat death. And this is something that over the school year, like really hammered home for me as I realized, like, man, all these great men, all these great leaders, the Caesars, right? Julius, Julius fucking Caesar, right? This guy. I mean, my God, right?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
died. He died
They're
like all the
dead.
rest.
They're dead,
Yeah.
and their
I mean, we
empire.
we remember his name, but look at the things that the guy had to be not just be one of the most baller individuals of all time, but also be born at the right time where he could execute the ballerness. And he's only remembered because he even died spectacularly, but he's still dead.
Yeah,
You know,
he's dead.
a knife did him in, right?
Yep.
And
And ultimately, his empire is dead, and
yeah,
it's just how it is, man.
yeah. So like one of the things I loved about the experience and why I'm going to go back is because it is quiet, because there is a quiet authority. And if the tomb is empty, I should probably sit down and shut the fuck up and listen to the guy that beat death.
Right,
Whatever that is, I don't even know. Like, because that is so over the top, insane that the
right.
only response is just, okay, I'm just gonna shut up.
And that's
When I
the
say
thing.
shut up, yeah, when I say shut up, retard, I'm talking to myself.
Right,
I just
exactly. Like, Lord
no,
have mercy on me,
yeah,
for
yeah,
I
exactly.
am
Oh my god.
retarded. You
Yes,
know?
I am evil and retarded.
Yeah,
I
Lord
love
have
that
mercy
meme.
on me, for I
So
am evil and retarded.
right, I am a sinner. I am evil and retarded.
Yeah,
Yes.
and you
Oh.
you walk in and you realize that you're taking part of something that's been done exactly the same way for over 1,000 years.
Yes. Yeah.
And
It makes it.
the
It actually
liturgy we
makes.
celebrate, by the way, was written by Saint John's Chrysanthemum.
Yes.
That is the liturgy, and he lived in the year 300 something, and we've been doing it
I
the
mean, that's a
same
lot something.
way,
Yeah.
the same way. And and that's the interesting part, is that it's not about you or
Yeah.
anybody in that
Doesn't
room.
matter. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
the
Exactly.
priest himself, he's not facing, for people that have never been to an Orthodox liturgy, uh, and kind of imagine it in the same way, a Roman Catholic one, which we're familiar with because it's in a lot of movies and stuff, right? Even if you're not a Roman Catholic, or a Protestant church, the Protestant preacher stands on stage, and the Roman Catholic priest also stands facing you from the altar, right? It's really important. The Orthodox priest faces away from you. His back is to you, because he is not special, in the way, it's not about him. You're not listening to him. He's just
Right.
our leader. He's our leader in front of us. We're the group, and he's our leader, and we are part of him, and we are worshiping. That's the thing, we're worshiping, right? It's not about us. It's not about our own individual issues, right? Those matter. We are persons, part of a larger group.
Yeah. It
And
was. It was. It was difficult to hear. It was difficult to hear the priest, and I paused for a moment and went, "Ooh, that's probably the point."
right, that is,
Because
I mean,
yeah, it's
and
just
eventually you go,
hang
you
on.
keep,
Yeah.
you keep going, and it's really wild, right? Like, um, my wife started going in April, and
Yeah.
at first she was overwhelmed by how, she's like, there's so much to learn. She's like, which icons do I venerate? What do I do when I walk in? Like, do I cross myself like 17 times, or I don't know, because there's all
It
these
sounds
like
like my
little,
wife.
like,
Yeah, it sounds like
right.
my wife too.
It's like
She's doing the same
overwhelming,
stuff. I
right?
love it.
And only 2 months later, it was like mid-May, like end of May, we did the Feast of Ascension in Charleston, and guest of the pod, friend of the pod, Isaiah, right? He ended up
Yeah,
joining us.
buddy.
He joined us for the first time, and I'm still waiting for his write-up, by the way, Isaiah, if you're listening. And
He'll
he
get
go,
there. He'll get there.
and he's like, oh, you guys know how to do everything, because my wife was there and he was watching her do everything, and I'm like, oh, see, Judy, like, I dox my wife, but you
Oops.
see, like, it's like, to him, you look like somebody that's been doing it for like 20 years, but little does he know that, like, you're brand new. You kind of get it
Yeah.
real quick.
Yeah.
You kind of become part of like the greater like body, like right away. And it's like I said, it's not about you, like
Yeah.
it's about, worshiping Christ. That's what it's about. It's not about like your own personal thing. You are a voice among many. You're a voice as one, and that's something that like is important to understand from a hierarchical tradition way. Like, when we speak for ourselves. So sometimes it is best to just be quiet,
Yeah.
just be quiet and listen. I spent many, many years in the military, right? And it's similar in the military. The military is about hierarchy, and you have officers, and you have senior enlisted, and you have little junior guys, and Everybody starts at the bottom. If you're a junior enlisted or a junior officer, you get treated like ass, right? Just
Hmm.
how it is. Your job is to take out the trash. And I remember many years ago, um, I worked in this clinic during one of my shore rotations, and I was working in the clinic, and I had this junior guy, and he was in the role of what you'd be like a medical assistant, right? He was working for me,
Hmm.
and he guys that checks in their patients and brings their patients in, cleans their rooms, does all that stuff. And this guy had an attitude. He had an attitude problem. He was a young guy, probably early 20s, maybe barely turned 21.
Hmm.
And one of the one of the officers called him into our office, and he's like, hey man, what's your problem, man? Why do you always have an attitude? He's like, well, I just feel like nobody listens to me. And the officer was a real nice dude, so he was like really like giving him like a nice
Yeah,
like
he could have got it. Yeah,
he
he
was
could have got
treating
it
him
very
nice. And
differently.
I'm sitting here in a corner, like, trying to like ignore this conversation, typing on my computer. And I just, I'm like all a crusty old dude that's been to Afghanistan a bunch and stuff. And I lose my shit, and I go, hey man, just shut up, dude, shut up, right? I go, listen, I go, the reason nobody listens to you is because nobody cares, because you can't even take out the trash on time. Like your one job is to like take out the trash at the end of the day from all the rooms and you cock that up, you know? So how am I going to trust you with anything? Like, why would I care about the opinion of the 20-year-old kid who cannot even do the menial task of taking out the trash? It's
Yeah.
like, I used to take out the trash, you know? Commander so and so here, he used to take out the trash when he was like in your position, right? Take out the fucking trash.
Yeah,
And
just
when you're
do
the
the
best
basic
trash
stuff.
taker, when you're the best trash taker out, maybe I'll listen to your opinion about the best way to take out the trash. I don't know. It's like we we build through our positions, right? We grow in our positions, right? But a
Right.
lot of people just want to be like in charge or have
Immediately.
they want to be like, C.S. Lewis and like, I just converted to or Orthodoxy or Roman Catholicism. Well, I'm basically C.S. Lewis now.
Now I
So
know
I'm
everything.
going to substack and tell you all my religious theological opinions, because I'm equal to, the church fathers that have been, whose writings stand the test of time for over 1,000 years. I'm basically St. Basil now. Shut up. Nobody cares. Be quiet. You know what I mean? Like, be quiet, right? And
uh,
it,
Love it.
it's like stop, okay? Like stop. And it's okay to be zealous and have a lot of passion for something you've discovered, right? But
Hmm.
like with everything, when you discover something new, when you get into something, right? You have to, there's a honeymoon phase and there's a reality check phase, it's like you gotta earn it in a way,
Yeah.
gotta become a veteran, you're not gonna listen to a guy tell you war stories that's never been a war, right? And in
Yeah.
the same way, it's the same thing for everything. It's just common sense. And definitely you're not going to be paying somebody for their opinions on, like you see a lot of these guys giving like life advice and they're like 24. They're like, oh, let me tell you how to be a husband. And shut up, dude. You know what I mean?
It's great because I wasn't ready for this until after I got sick. And it sucks, but the transcending of it has taught me how to do this kind of thing. Like, yeah, I went. I'm excited. I also understand that I've probably got at least a couple of years, a few years if I choose to do this. I've got a few years of just learning basic stuff and learning how to walk. Well, 6 years ago, all right, 5 shots a day. Let's fucking go. You
Right.
don't have a choice. What's the alternative? A painful death. Okay,
Right.
well, time to get good at taking out the trash. And it turns out the trash is me. So fair enough. Yeah, I mean that's just how life works, guys. That's just how life works.
Right.
Kind
And
of
every day you should
better
wake
late
up.
than never, right? But
Yep.
anyway,
Every day you should wake up and say, God have mercy on me, for I am evil and retarded. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
exactly. You know what's great about it too is that if the claims of Christianity are true, which they are, if they're true, 30, 40, little over 40 plus years into my life, I figured this out. Awesome. Because like, yeah, I'll die whenever I die, but eventually, oh, hey, what's up? I mean, that's cool. So I'm getting an early start.
Right.
Fantastic.
Right.
Outstanding. Let's go. It's great because it means, you live long enough and you realize that there's always things to learn, there's always things to see. And I think at least for somebody of my demeanor, if I was to imagine heaven as in any kind of obviously layperson way, right? If I were to imagine it, it would be just constantly discovering new things. Well, I've
Right.
gone 43 years and I'm still discovering new things all the time. So another an eternity of this. Nice. Let's go. Like,
Yeah.
sign me up. I'm done. Like, I don't even need to be persuaded in any direction. It's just, yep, done. Where's the
Yeah.
dotted line?
That
I don't
that's
even
that,
care.
that's the way to do it, man.
It's fantastic.
All
So
right,
anyway,
so let's get to the topic we've been meaning to talk about.
mm,
Now we diverge, which is education and your
yes.
school year. So this was your first full school year as a teacher, right?
Second,
Second,
second
okay.
full. But
And
this year, yeah. Sorry, but yeah, I'll let you talk. But yeah, second full year.
okay, your second full year, and this is the one where you had some interesting ideas, and you put out some interesting ideas towards your students, and interesting teaching kind of approach. And yeah, so if I remember correctly, you started your first semester and you are really into Ernst Jünger and the Forest.
Yes.
Let's go. Let's
All
go.
right.
Tell me about it.
So first semester, I want to highlight briefly what happened in first semester. That way, everybody's kind of up to speed, and we're all up to speed on the same page here. So first semester, what I did is essentially Starship Troopers, right? The book. There's a character in it, Mr. Dubois. He's a veteran, and he teaches a class called History and Moral Philosophy. And it's not a class you have to pass, but it's a class that you have to take. And it's basically like Introduction to Social Studies, right? And this guy spends all of his time basically ripping on people and giving them a hard time because they don't have to pass, so he doesn't care, and he's just trying to do cultural production, trying to take these kids and take these students and turn them into adults that might actually, be worth a damn at some stage, right? That's the idea. So I kind of approached that in first semester, and the way I did it was essentially just a history of Western civilization, from the origins in the in Mesopotamia and the original cultural hearths, all the way up through the fall of Constantinople in 1453. And the idea behind it was, giving the students a foundation, giving the students an understanding of where their culture comes from. Because I'm in Southwest Florida, right? So all of the kids here, I have about roughly 60-40 mix of Latins to Anglos, or cracker whites, as we call them down here in Florida. So I got basically a bunch of Mexicans and a bunch of cracker whites, right? And then a sprinkling of, a few Jamaicans, and a few students, obviously descended of African stock. Whether slaves or not, I have no idea. But anyway, it's a pretty representative mix of Southern United States, I would say, right? So,
Right.
but all of them share this culture in common simply by virtue of living in the United States, right? So I went through all of that. We went through Rome, Western Rome. We went through the rise of Christianity, the rise of Islam, Judaism, how that all happened. Went through Byzantine history, all the way up through the fall of Constantinople, like I said, and essentially I was trying to show them the story, and the real goal was the midterm. So the midterm happens in December, and what I do is, so we get like a small budget for the classroom. It's like $400-$500, and we can spend it on whatever we want. I blew it all on art supplies. All right, so they all come in, and I've got all these different art supplies, clay, marker, like just all kinds of crap. And I basically go, okay, guys, I need you to make a cultural artifact based on something we studied over the semester. So we spend a couple of weeks, or not a couple of weeks, a couple of days doing that. And then on the actual day of the final exam, I set up a museum in my room. So all the kids come in and all of the artifacts are organized like a museum. and I tell them, okay, guys, explore and show me what we did. Talk to me about what happened. What on earth have we been doing for the past 6 months? So I essentially tried to turn the class into a civilization of itself. You see what I mean? And then I
Right.
had them study that civilization. I teased them leading up to the midterm. We're going to study something that's never been studied before. Our own class. And the kids went crazy with it. It was awesome. I had all kinds of like some kids did, real basic things like making some swords. The Crusades were really popular, by the way. So just throwing that out there. But no, like, you had people who made like statues of me. Like I've got this I don't know what you would call it, but it's like a royal visage of myself in clay. Like it's very funny. Some other kids did stuff based on the classroom. There was a guy that they did a little sculpture of like their tables and the four students, and then a bunch of, and then all the different kinds of topics. So there was all kinds of stuff for people to study. And that's what we did. And, we had great conversations, and people wandered around the museum for an hour and a half and wrote down what they saw and answered some questions. And all right, have a great winter. I'll see you next semester. Right. So that's what happened. If people are interested in this, they can read more about it. I'm going to pimp my Substack here a little bit, but I spent a good portion of the first semester writing about it. Every week I would write something called Forest Lessons, and these are my own reflections on this process. And it wrapped up real nicely. I've got a whole essay talking about that midterm, right? So anyway, if anybody wants to find out more about that, you can go to my Substack and read about it. Second semester. So second semester was going to be a little weird. It was going to be a little different because I had a few ideas of where I wanted it to go. But then our administration came to us with a request. Now, something I want to address here real quick. One of our listeners in chat, I don't know if you saw that, but he wanted me to discuss how I approach education because I'm in a public school. How do I avoid all of the fake and gay stupidity? All right. Well, uh, Jason, I avoid it because I live in a rural town in Red, Florida. That's how I avoid it. I'm just very lucky. I have an administration that they know what they care about, and they do not particularly care about how we get there. I also have a colleague in the social studies department who's kind of like my sergeant, who's kind of like my mentor. And him and I are like in lockstep. Like him and I have a blast together. So I'm just really, really lucky. Him and I are given basically free reign to do very creative things, to really kind of get crazy with it, as long as we get done what administration wants. And
Right.
second semester, it was this. It was all about reading scores. They were like, look, you guys can do the social studies thing, do the geography thing, but we need you to help us get the reading scores, get the reading scores, get the reading scores. So we're like, okay, fine. So we already have this foundation, right? This was foundation of Western civilization. Um, Second semester, we decide, okay, well, how about we'll keep going a little bit, and then we'll slowly start bringing in reading more and more so, make it kind of the focus. So we did the Age of Exploration. The Age of Exploration, we looked at several different readings, several different diary entries for the different people involved. Like we did Champlain. I had some writings from him, like some other guys. So, we're slowly bringing that in. So we do the Age of Exploration. And then we did a 2 week unit. You may want to talk about this because it was a lot of fun, but we did a 2 week unit on Japan, which was super successful. Um, we did a couple of weeks on Russia, and then we segued that into Animal Farm. And we read
Nice.
Animal Farm in class. That was great. That went really, really well. Um, it was really fun too because as some people I'm sure know, Russia's kind of my wheelhouse. That's what I studied when I was in college. So to get to do Soviet history and then do Animal Farm, and like the kids got a ton of it. They were like, "Oh my god, this!" So that was just candy store for me. It was great. So anyway, after that, we do a few different short stories. We did Metamorphosis, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I brought in a few, The Last Question by Isaac Asimov. We also did Inhabitant of Carcosa. If anybody's never heard of that, that's like a Ambrose Bierce, I think is the guy that wrote it. But it's like a uh, it's like a proto
Lovecraftian type
horror.
thing.
So yeah, Lovecrafty. Yeah, very, very cool little thing. And I'm just throwing stuff at them. They're like, this stuff is really weird. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the point. I'm just trying to show you guys how language works and the different things you can express with language. And this is the route we go, right? We end the semester with The Great Gatsby, which I did that inspired by this podcast. cast where people were shitting on The Great Gatsby, and I was inspired to be like, okay, fine, I'm teaching it in class. Deal with it. So we did The Great Gatsby. Mixed success there because it was definitely above the reading level of a lot of different kids, but I know that quite a few of them really, really liked it. And I mean, me personally, I think it was fun for them because I'm sitting there reading it with them and I'm going, guys, this book is fantastic. Like, I get it now. That book, I hadn't read it since high school. And oh, fantastic
Right.
book, spectacular book, just absolute American masterpiece. I get it. Anyway, so we do all that and we have fun and it's great. It's fantastic. And then the reading tests come along and the kids knock it out of the park. My colleague did his overall scores were outstanding. His classes did the best out of everybody in the freshman class, which makes sense. I mean, this guy's long in the tooth, so like he knows what he's doing. He did a fantastic job. And then for me, mine were well above average. They weren't nearly as good as his, but it was the kind of thing where it's like, you've only been doing this for 3 years, and those are the scores your kids got. What the hell are you doing, dude? You know, so it was like that kind of thing, right? But in the end, we're kind of studs, bro. As far as the high school is concerned, they were like, you guys did a spectacular job. In fact, they're moving some of the English teachers. We're going to be working with some of the English teachers next semester to further refine the approach. And it 100% has to do with the, performance of the freshmen this year. So basically it's just using our classes to, like I said, to answer Jason's question, like they know what they want what they want, and they are not very specific on how we get there. So we have a lot of leeway. And considering the fact that, we knocked it out of the park next year, I mean, they're having us do different classes next year. I'm going to be doing American government the first semester and then debate the second semester. But as I told you, we could do a whole another episode on this. I'm also the debate coach now, and we had a little freshman year debate. That was another thing we did. I almost forgot to mention it, and that was absolutely spectacular. We put on a big debate thing, and I emceed it, and we had a bunch of big names there. And dude, it was great. I was basically putting on David Letterman, like in the middle of my high school, and all the kids loved it. They were like, "Give yourself!" And I mean, I walk out on stage to you, and they're just, just roaring, just having a blast. So like everything just went incredibly well. It was a great year. Um, and that's kind of a summary. So I'll leave it to you at this point. I have a few things that I can share that I would like to share. But is there anything specific you would like to talk about more?
Well, actually, I was having a conversation with my coworker today, and he's about my age, and he's got a bunch of kids, and we were talking about sending your kid to private school versus public school and that type of thing. And one of the things he said, his kids are much older than mine. Well, I think two of his kids are in high school already, and he said that to a certain degree, the school doesn't matter as much than the actual like student themselves, right? So what I think, and this is what I think you do very well as a teacher, from what it sounds like. I'm not a student, so I don't know, but I would love to have been in your class from what it sounds. Is that I think that for young people, and I'm talking about young people, freshmen and below, kind of, where they're
Yeah.
still, education at the higher levels, once like the baseline is established, where you're really like, it needs to be topic specific and needs to engage with the specific topic that you're studying. Like I'm talking about at the undergrad level, where you're, I'm going to
Yeah.
study this, so give me what I want to study,
Right.
but at the level, at the pre-college level, the high school level and lower, I think the key is that the teacher has to teach students how to learn and how to
Yes.
ask questions and to
Yes.
develop this curiosity in them. And you do
Correct.
that by exposing them to like a variety of ideas and concepts, and also showing them the vast library of learning resources, ideas, and material, whether it's like literature, historical knowledge, artistic and cultural knowledge, right? And you kind of train them how to look for themselves, People don't know that they like plays until they do plays, or until they're
Yep.
exposed to plays, right?
Yes.
Everybody knows what a
Exactly.
play is, but you don't know if you enjoy one until, well, you've seen one, or have been exposed to a good one. Um, a lot of people say like, oh, I don't really like reading. And you ask them, well, what have you read? And they're like, well, I read
Nothing. They haven't read anything.
nothing. Well, that's why you don't like reading, because you haven't really given you haven't been
Yeah,
nobody
nobody's showing you the weird stuff.
yeah,
Check this
nobody
out.
was there, like, guiding you in the right
Right.
direction. And I think that's the key to being a good teacher, is that you're kind of like, you kind of have to, in a way, trick the students, right? Especially at that age, right? You trick them into liking stuff. You trick them into kind of it's a not a really, not very well connected, but kind of along the same line. So my wife had to go out of town to go with her family last week, and she had to fly out to California and for a family emergency. And I was with my daughter by myself for a whole week. And this is the first time I've ever spent that much time with my daughter alone. Usually it's me that goes away for, chunks of time, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what to do. I'm like, how am I going to keep her entertained for an entire week, So I decided
Mhm.
I'm going to go, you know what? We're going to watch old movies every day. Like
Perfect. Yeah.
after we're going to have dinner together. I'm going to cook dinner just like if her mom was home, and we're going to sit at the table and eat dinner together. Then we're going to watch a movie, right? But I'm like, not just any movie. I'm picking the movies.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna watch the real stuff.
and of course, at first, she protested. No,
She's like,
I
oh
don't want. No, it
no.
looks boring. Oh no, it's boring. And the first movie I picked was Jaws, right? And nobody judged me for letting
Nice.
my daughter watch
Ah,
Jaws.
whatever.
She's 7. That's good. I watched Total Recall when I was like
Fine.
6. Um,
Fine.
so
It's
she's
fine.
like, no, it looks boring. And then we were started watching it. And 2.5 hours later, she's enthralled by it. She's just
Yeah.
enthralled, right? Like,
Yeah.
she wants, she's just like, and she picked up on all like the hints and the cues, and she's like, oh, they did this, they did that. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to like stop the movie and just high five her and give her a hug, because as soon as she saw the oxygen tank, she's like, oh, I bet you they're going to kill her with the oxygen tank. They're going to blow it up. I'm like, how'd you know? You know what I mean? Like
Perfect.
she like figured that, like she
Yes.
figured that, like she caught the Chekhov's gun MacGuffin, like right from
Yeah.
like the hint of the movie. And I'm like, oh, it's so
Yeah.
good for a 7-year-old. I mean, she turned 7 like 2 weeks ago. And
Yeah. No wonder she enjoyed it so much because she's picking up on that stuff and then it delivers. And it's like, yeah,
right, right.
we like
And
getting spoiled, whether we like it or not.
and she didn't, let's say she resisted at first, because that's what kids do. Kids resist.
Yeah.
And as soon as they're
Come on,
done, she's like,
Dad.
amazing. And then we
Yep.
watched on another day we watched Back to the Future, and she liked that, and it was a good movie. We got to talk about the 1950s and that kind of stuff, uh,
Classic film.
and some
Great
some
film.
like time travel shenanigans. And
Yeah.
at first I had to stop and explain like the causality and the paradoxes and stuff involved in that
Right.
movie. And then we watched Back to the Future 2 on a different day, and the fourth and final movie was Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Okay.
Oh,
Now,
so
listen,
good.
I like Terminator 1 better. I think Terminator 1's the better movie, but
It is.
Terminator
Yeah,
1 is a
absolutely.
little bit too rated R for her. I
Yes.
was like, we're gonna
Yeah. No, it's
skip.
got the full frontal and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
So,
it's got that really intense like sex scene in the middle of it, and I was like, I don't know
right.
if I
Well,
don't
and
know how
then
much.
the police station
Yeah,
massacre. I mean, that's freaking
yeah, that part. I
brutal.
mean, she'd probably like that part. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
anyways.
Watch that a little later. But like Terminator 2 is such a good blockbuster.
Right,
It's just
right,
yes. I mean, it's one of the few sequels that took the original concept and then made it different enough and made it cool enough where it's like, oh, this is great. I
yeah,
mean, it improved on, but it's also its own thing at the same
right,
time. Like it wasn't trying to just ape the first movie. It was really its
right.
own deal.
And she loved the T1000 and the whole
Yes.
thing, and like she got all the she's smart enough to like get all this stuff. But what the whole point of
Yeah.
this was is she resisted every one of the movie choices I made. She's like, I don't want to watch a movie about robots. I'm like, just be quiet, just be quiet. And as soon as that
Yeah.
thing starts the
Dun, dun,
beginning,
dun. Yeah.
Yeah, she's like
Oh yeah.
enthralled, and this is a 7-year-old that's like,
Yeah.
brain rotted by Fortnite and stuff.
What'd she do when the T-1000 put his finger through the lady's face?
Oh, that's like her favorite part with the Wolfie.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is Wolfie
Or the
okay?
shotgun twirl,
Your dog,
the shotgun out of the roses.
yeah, your
Perfect.
dog's dead. Well, it's so interesting when you watch movies with children,
Your
or
parents are
you
dead.
you probably get this as a teacher, and you see like they probably surprise you on like what younger people pick up and what they focus on. And that's what always fascinates
Yeah.
me. Like, so watching
Yeah,
Terminator,
second semester. Sorry, just real quick. Second semester, or sorry, first semester. It was the Aya Sophia. The Aya Sophia everybody remembered. I don't know what it is with that thing, but like the whole Nika riots and the story and Justinian and Theodora. This is one of those fun things too. Like when you tell people about stuff, you know, one of my favorite things to do is when kids ask me like, "What do you mean by that?" or "Wait, what's going on?" I just straight up tell them the truth. I'm like, "Yeah, Theodora, she was an actress," and then I do the air quotes. And they're like, "Why'd you do air quotes?" Guys, she was a whore. Wait, what? And then all of a sudden they're like, "Whoa, tell me more." Wait, who is this lady? What did she say to Justinian? What's going on? And then all of it, and they built a what? They're like, oh wait, hold on. It's just you
right?
pull that curtain back a little bit and go, guys, check it out. This is the real stuff, and this is just that's one little story. Guys, I got these for days. Like, let's go. So yeah. Anyway,
Right.
sorry.
And it's just fascinating what younger people like focus on, and sometimes they like focus on things that might not like they might not like you might not expect them to focus on, like so like my daughter watching Terminator 2, one thing that like really stuck out to her and she like mentioned it a bunch of times was early in the movie John Connor is like hanging out with his little derelict delinquent buddy and they like break into the ATM and then they go to the arcade and they're like playing in the arcade and the T1000 shows up and he's going around the mall. He's in the Galleria Mall and he's just asking like a bunch of people like, "Have you seen this
Have you
kid?
seen this?
Have you
Yeah,
seen John
have
Connor?"
you seen this boy? Have you seen this
Yeah,
man?
and he runs into John Connor's little buddy that they were playing video games with, who stepped away because he was going to get more quarters or something. He goes, "Have you seen John Connor? Do you know this boy?" And the kid's like, "No, no, I haven't seen him in a while." And like he like
Oh man.
walks away and goes to John Connor and is like, "Hey, there's this cop looking for you, man." Well, anyways, that really like stuck. Like that really got my daughter's attention. She's like, "Oh, that guy's a good friend," and like he's really looking out. And I was like, "Huh." Like that's interesting. And that
Yeah,
was like she's like, "I like that character a lot. And I have no memory of that character from, watching him
yeah.
before. And that
I can
like
picture it. I can picture it now. Yeah,
yeah, and he's like a little scrawny, little creepy little redhead.
yeah.
And like it's that stuck with her. Like I was like, "Oh, well, that's interesting." That resonated with you so much of like, not snitching to the
Yeah.
cops. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a
But
good
I mean
thing.
that fits her though, because that sounds like the kind of thing you would have done growing up.
Right, right,
Like you
right.
would have been like, dude, you even grew up in Los Angeles. You'd be like, yeah, dude, this cop. You've probably said that to people.
Yeah,
Don't lie
I'm
to me.
pretty sure I did that. I mean,
Don't lie to me, bro.
it's funny. I mean, I did grow up there, and then I've been to that mall numerous times, the Galleria in
Yeah,
Los Angeles.
that's good
Um,
stuff. But I mean, that's the way, man. Like, dude, I don't. He's ride or die. He's ride or die for his friend. He's like, I don't care what you did, but there's a cop looking for you. I'm just letting you know.
right, and he like
I'm just
lied to
letting you
the
know.
cop, and like that
Yeah,
stuck with her, and I was like, "Oh, that's
yeah.
interesting. Um,
That's the game, man. That's how it's got to be.
but yeah, that's it. That's great. Now, you also during your Japan week, you went over some Mishiba,
Oh,
some poetry with them, and
yes.
some
Oh, that's right. Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, so Japan was great. That one was a little inspired because, well, number one, I had been talking to kids about what they want to learn about, and that was one of the things that Japan kept coming up. Japan kept coming up. So I was like, all right, let's go. And I let off the unit, so it was a 2 week unit, and I started by showing them Blade Runner, like the first intro scene with the interview and when he blows that dude away and like the whole that all stuff. And I framed it as cyberpunk. And I read a little bit. It was right after I'd read Neuromancer, so I read a little bit of Neuromancer. Like I was really kind of set, and I went, guys, like where does this start? Like how on earth do people imagine these couple of things? Well, let me share. And then we did a whole unit. We went through Japanese history, Japanese geography, Japanese culture. I spent a few days on the Tokugawa shogunate, the Meiji Restoration, the Imperial Project, and I told the story of Imperial Japan from Imperial Japan's perspective. I was like, you guys are going to learn about the American side of World War II. Let me tell you about the Japanese side of World War II. We did all that stuff, and then we went into cyberpunk and we went into fiction, and then I had them guys, look at where Japan is today. Where do you think it's going to end up? Where do you think it's going to go? And how is it going to get there? So we kind of turned it into this whole thing, and it came full circle, and it was, incredibly cool. But with that, yeah, Mishima was part of it, and we had some of his poetry, and I told them about him, and they really took to that guy. I can't remember what exactly I showed him as far as what of his writings, but it stuck with them, like especially a couple of the fellas. Like they look at him, they're like, I had the photos, the big famous photo where he's got the samurai pose or whatever, and then the other one where he's got the big old cigar in his mouth and he's just got that shit-eating grin. It's like, who is that dude? And I shared with him like, guys, this was a man that he's dealing with, Japan as it's changing after the war, and this guy still has the soul of a samurai. And I had showed them Tokugawa. I mean, I've got a painting of Tokugawa hanging in my classroom, like, all this stuff. And I was like, and they got it. They're like, oh man, that is difficult to do, to like change from that. Guys, Japan was like that for 300 years. Was this freaking hardcore crazy place. Now all of a sudden they got to go work for Nintendo. Wait, what? Like, how does that change, and how are people going to react to that? And it's just trying to show them, hey, this is, and how are things changing right now? Like, look at the world we're in. I love pointing out the fact that, like, guys, I'm from Ohio. Where are you guys all from? Mexico, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, Florida. We got guys from Michigan. We got people all over the place. And I'm all like, we're all sitting here in this tiny little town in the middle of Florida, all looking at each other. What's going on here?
Right.
Yeah, like, you guys ever stop and think about that for a second? Like, who are your kids going to grow up and marry? What are your grandkids going to look like? What's going on? Like, yeah, and then make some pause and they go, oh, hold on a second. It's I think part of it, like when you were talking earlier, you talk about your daughter, like kids don't want to learn about stuff. They don't want to know knowledge. They want lore. Tell me the lore. What's the
Right.
stories? What's the secrets? What's the knowledge? Tell me the lore. Like a proper Lord of the Rings type stuff, like Gandalf
Well,
and whatever. That's
that's
how
how
they
we
want to learn. That's
learned.
what they want to learn. And
But
that's
because that's
exactly.
how humans were programmed. Not programmed. Programmed is an asshole word. That's how humans,
Yeah.
like, that's how we developed, right? We
Yeah. Myth
sat
and
around the
stories.
fire and listened to
Yeah.
stories from
Exactly.
older people to tell us about like great heroes and, you know, the wolves in the forest that are dangerous outside the light of the fire, and, the things we're supposed to do to venerate the gods and then later God. And, that's what we do, right? That's why we learn. You know,
Yeah.
you you take it, I don't know if you noticed when you went to liturgy on Sunday, but they sing everything, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there's a reason why they sing everything. One of the reasons they sing everything is for that. There's actually two reasons why. One reason is the liturgy was, written by Saint John Chrysostom back in, 300 something, right? Let me tell you the actual age real fast of it.
Look it up real fast. You'll like this. The choir director talked to us for a little while. She's like, I really like your voice. You've got a reader voice. And I went, oh boy, here we go. I'm already
uh,
getting roped in.
you're gonna you're
Bring it
gonna
on. Let's go.
you're gonna join the church, get chrismated, then you're gonna be tonsured as a reader. You get
Fine.
tonsured as a
Perfect.
reader, right? The readers get tonsured.
I don't know what that means. What does that mean?
So like to become a reader, you have to kind of like do some classes and stuff, but you actually have to
Yeah.
be blessed by the bishop, and
Oh, wow.
you have to receive formal tonsure, like they cut across the sign of the cross into your hair.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and you're an official member of your lower tier clergy, but you're a
Member
non.
of the clergy.
Yeah, like a lower level, but
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
there, yeah,
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool actually, but there.
I'd be down. Let's go.
So
Whatever.
the let me see the liturgy. It was basically from around 398 or between 398 and 404, right? Um, and it was officially used in the Hagia Sophia. Yeah, so it's been around for a
That
long,
struck,
long
yeah, that
time,
that
right?
that that struck me when I was sitting there. I'm like, man, this is the same stuff they chanted in this in the Hagia Sophia.
Right,
Whole, I'm listening to liturgy that Justinian listened to
right,
in the
right,
church he built.
right.
That's freaking cool, man. I mean, for a historian, sign me up, man. That's just fantastic. I mean, I think about, I think about the depths of all that stuff. Like this is the same stuff. I mean, one of my favorite Byzantine emperors, Constantine the 11th, the last one. That's probably the stuff he did. I
Right.
mean,
Well, yeah, it is. And here's
amazing,
here's the coolest
amazing.
thing. Here's the coolest thing about it, right? Because we
Oh boy.
believe we believe that liturgy, when we take part in it, it is outside of time, right?
Yeah, right.
You are celebrating the liturgy at the same time with Emperor Justinian, right? Because they're all the same, right? They're all the same
Yeah,
ones, right? So you are
yeah,
you are part of that exact moment, basically. You know what I mean? In a
yeah.
way, which is really
That's
cool to
cool.
me when you think about it. But
That's
th-
incredible.
so the reason they sang it and the reason they
Yeah,
still sing it is one, because if you notice, the Orthodox Church does not use any microphones and stuff, right?
right.
Not
Yep.
because we can't afford them, I mean, because me and I can
Right,
afford them, so I'm sure the church can afford them, right? But
right.
because it just we don't need them, right?
Yeah.
And they always sang it back in the day because singing carries your voice, especially in churches designed to carry
No,
your
yeah.
voice, right?
Stone churches. I mean,
Right,
give me a break. Done.
right. The other reason is that it's easier to remember, right? Because
Yeah, it makes sense.
remember, Christianity is not about a book, right? It's not about
Yep.
reading a book. It's not about studying, right? It's about participating. And up until what, like, the 17th century, maybe? When was the printing press invented? Like in the, what, 1600s or so, right?
15 something, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well,
doesn't
up
matter.
until then,
Whatever.
most people were illiterate, right? Nobody
Yeah.
knew except for the priest class, the priests, right? So
Yeah.
people had just had to remember everything, right? Everybody remembered everything, all the way
Yeah.
from the lowest peasant to the kings. And there weren't a lot of kings in antiquity and the early medieval era were illiterate themselves, right? So they just had to
Yeah.
memorize everything, and
Yeah,
you
I want to take a quick detour. So I've been reading Fellowship of the Ring, right?
right,
And what you are discussing plays directly into that. I've really enjoyed the book. You know, I originally read it 20 plus years ago when I was in college. I didn't understand things. And there's whole chapters where it's loaded with poetry and song and this and that,
right,
and it's because that's how they remember things. That's how they write down the history. Like Bilbo writes a song about Aragorn and like all this stuff, and that's how they remember things. And then they share
right.
it with each other, and they just, songs just it's something they just do. It's how things are communicated to each other. So
Right.
yeah, it's the most natural thing in the world
They
to
would
sing.
sing the songs
Yeah,
on a pilgrimage, on a trip, right? And then they would remember them, and then they would sing the songs at inns and at places where they would stop, and then that's how history was shared. That's how ritual was shared.
yeah,
And you see that in the Lord of the Rings movie. There's that scene where Aragorn is singing the song about Beren and Luthien, and
yeah.
one of the hobbits asks
Yep.
him like, "Oh, what are you singing about?" And he kind of tells him the history. In the book, he goes a lot more into details, and you really get
Yeah,
what the song is about. But yeah, it's like that's exactly it, right? So not only is it meant as a practical projection of sound, but it's also meant to be remembered. And I'm a horrible when it comes to memory. I cannot remember actors' names, dates, anything, right? I'm good at
yeah,
I can remember the details and scene of every movie I've ever seen, or book I've ever
yeah,
read. But I have a hard
yeah,
time with like actual names. But I catch myself in church and I remember the songs because they're the same every time. And I'm like, oh, I get it. And by just kind of
yeah.
getting them, I can sing along with them. And it's like, oh, now I'm part of this. Now I too am singing. I'm not
Yeah,
watching a
I got that.
Yeah, you're not
Sorry,
watching a
go.
performance. You are part of the process. You're participating in a thing. You are in the choir, right? Like
Yeah.
the choirs are not paid choirs, they're not trained entertainers. They're you, right? You are the choir. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Yeah,
And
it was really nice to when I was listening and going through the liturgy, as they were going through the liturgy, I didn't know any of it except I caught the Lord's Prayer and the Nicene Creed, and I went, nice, like, and I get that because now all of a sudden I know those two things, and then when I heard them, it got my attention immediately. I
right,
could not help but then kind of just be immersed in that moment. The rest of it I couldn't understand, and I was still there, but like when it came across things that, ooh, I know that,
right. Well, because
I was
you
right
know the
there.
Nicene Creed, because the Roman Catholics used this almost the same one with
Yeah.
one comma difference, basically. Um, but yeah, but to take it back to the classroom,
Yes.
that's kind of the idea of a good, I think, in my opinion, of a good classroom is that it is a participatory thing where the the leader, right, the teacher introduces these ideas and brings in the participation by getting people to repeat, to find their own voice amongst like the choir, right? Like,
Hmm.
and teaching them like, hey, look, there's all this great stuff out there. And why don't you find something and bring it to us and then we'll expand on it and we'll work on it. You know what I mean?
That's
And that
yes,
seems
and
like the process you're doing, like, and it's so freaking cool.
that's exactly right. I want to share a quick story uh, about a hero of mine, and then I'll segue it into. I have two works here. One is a short story that a student of mine wrote, and the other one is a poem. So one of the questions that was asked by our one of our beautiful paid subscribers, John asked, "I want to hear about any surprises from kids you didn't think would step up if I had any." John, I had tons. It was quite ridiculous. I'm going to highlight these two because I have access to them and also because they stood out above and beyond the others. But before I share them, let me get to it. So like the first two semesters, this is getting into the final project now. So, going through the semesters, the genesis of the method was a story I heard. So you've heard of the Detroit Red Wings in hockey and the Russian
Right.
Five, right?
Right.
There were two of those players. There was a guy named Slava Fetisov, who was the captain of the Red Army team back in the 80s. Legendary defensive man, one of the greatest hockey players ever. And another guy, Sergei Fedorov, younger guy, famous for goal scoring, another one of these Hall of Famer legendary players. Um, Fetisov was like the old bear Russian, right? And this guy was to a Russian player when they got Fetisov on the Russian Five, it was like a god had like stepped into onto the rink, onto the ice, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this guy, we got Fetisov. Holy smokes!" Right? So this guy is a legend. All right. Fedorov somewhat infamously had some trouble adjusting to the realities of North American hockey. For people who aren't familiar, at the time anyway, Russian hockey was really Soviet hockey was almost like ballet on ice, right? While North American, the Canadians and the Americans were brawlers, right? Dump, go get the puck, it's just very physical game. And Fedorov had been criticized quite a bit for not really being able to play through pain. So he got hurt one day, and one of the key things that really started to like turn him around was Fetisov. It's like 2 in the morning, and they'd been doing whatever they were doing. And Fetisov's like, "Come on, let's go down to the rink. We're gonna go. Actually, we're gonna go do drills and stuff." And what was going on is, the physical trainer was telling this story, and he's talking about how he's working on Fedorov's body, right? At the rink, Fetisov takes his pads and puts them on Fedorov and has Fedorov like running drills and like doing check and like all this really physical stuff. And the physical trainer points out that Fetisov was working on Fedorov's heart, right? I mean, think about that. You put on the pads that belong to literally a god amongst men. This is like
That's awesome.
Gandalf
Yeah.
putting his robe on Frodo, You know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah.
holy shit. And I love that story because this is when they end up, winning the cup and like it's just incredible stuff, right? Um, but that is the genesis of what I was trying to do this year. I don't care about what's up in your brain. I don't care what you remember. I'm trying to work on that thing inside your chest and make you go, awake to the greater reality, the fact that you are a human being alive and you are in a world that is full of ridiculously over the top wonder and horror in equal measure. And you need to know about it. You need to be able to check this stuff out. So anyway, so we go through, the whole semesters and everything. And here was my final project. I did a spin. So my very first year, it was I did like roughly 2/3 of the year. And at the end of the year, I had them create this final project where I had them imagine like a Mars base, right? Because that's
Mhm.
big with the kids these days. And it was a way to get them to imagine a future society, right? To test them on the things that I'd imagined this year. This year, I took it a little bit further. And as many people will know, I'm a huge fan of the Expanse books and television series. And that's literally what I called it. I called it the Expanse, and I taught the kids about the solar system. I taught them about Mars and Venus and the asteroid belt and all the different planets. And then I had them use that as the raw material. That's why I called it the Expanse, because I was using the whole solar system this time. And it was a cheap excuse to show them some cool videos and, blah, blah, blah. But the whole idea about it was, guys, I want you to take everything like we did in the midterm. I made the joke. I don't have a budget, so we have to do this, cheap. But I want you guys to remember that museum idea that we had. And now I want you to create something artistic, a short story, a poem, art, whatever you want, go nuts. But there was one thing that I required. You have to talk to me. You have to discuss with me in detail what you're going to do. And I want to say I probably had about 90% compliance, 95% compliance with the discussing me part of things. And I really let them kind of go nuts. I had one point where I had a group of like 5 or 6 guys who they were across multiple classes and they had this idea that they all wanted to work on together. And like it was chaos. But I was like, guys, just go do it. You can just do things. Go. Just whatever you're thinking, do it. Just keep me in the loop, talk to me. And I gave them like 4 or 5 days. We had tons of time to do this. And the idea was the constant discussion, constant talking, and then just, I had people come in and they're like, I really don't know what I want to do yet. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And I said, well, just chill out for the day. Like, just think about it. Work on it tomorrow. You got plenty of time. Just work on it tomorrow. They're like, really? Like, yeah, you don't have to do anything today. Just take some time, think about it, and then let it cook. Like, let it sit up there in your mind and then see what you come up with. And they're like, oh, okay, all right. So, it's really a different way of doing this. I provided a lot of not just time, but a lot of space also. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, so they start turning things in, they start making things. The few things that stood out to me, I'll tell some of the ideas and then I'll read briefly from a few of these things. Um, one of my favorite ideas was somebody, this girl came up to me. She had not, she'd been really quiet all year and she just goes, can I build something in Minecraft? Yes. She's like, wait, really? I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna grade it, but just we'll figure that out. She ended up building like a whole thing in like this whole base with like, and she figured out like, she actually did research on what this would look like and like built a Mars base in Minecraft.
That's so awesome.
She's like, I locked in for 3 days and just she pulled out her phone and like whipped it up and like I didn't even know you could do Minecraft on phones. And she's just like, here you go. And then she gave me like the grand tour. I was like, what the heck? This is awesome. She's like, oh yeah. So anyway, so like that one stood out. Another kid, he had just such a good idea. He's not a writer, so the execution was fine. But he's like, I'm gonna write a story about a garbage man on the moon on the first day on his job. And it was it turned into a comedy because through the discussion we were like, yeah, make it so like he's replacing a guy who got hit with an asteroid, and like that's why he got that job was because the other guy got like killed in an accident, and he's just like and just make him stupid, make him just like the most like you know helpless like the job is so automated that like he's just a meat puppet that does it. You know what I mean? Like it was really really funny. We had another one where this famous fisherman. It was almost like a Don Quixote thing. This kid was like, "I love fishing," and I'm like, "Well, make a story about fishing on Mars." And there's like, but there's no water on Mars. Well, how about the guy gets to Mars and he's pissed there's no water, so he terraforms the planet so he can fish on Mars. And he's like, okay, yeah, awesome, let's do it. And it just goes crazy. They had another one where this girl wrote a story about somebody who accidentally boards the wrong shuttle and ends up having to settle in with a colony around Saturn, and like she gets separated from her family who goes to Jupiter, but because it's so they're so far apart, like she's never going to see her family again. So the whole story is about dealing with the fact that I got on the wrong shuttle and now I'm on like the opposite side of the solar system and I'm never going to see my family again. Like stuff like that. So like those are some of the ideas, and we had cool conversations. This one here, so this was a kid, kind of a quiet, gets more into sport. For the midterm, he wrote some poetry that was quite good that I quite liked. And he decided to write a poem for this. So I'm going to read this real quick. It's a short little thing.
All right.
But it's
Can't wait
called
to hear it.
this guy's 15 years old. All right. So just put that in your mind. It's called Untethered. I took a job way out on Mars, a dusty rock with no green yards. Not for dreams, just for cash, but now I'll never return. They built a tower tall and high, worked up there above the sky. Thin air, red ground, so alone. Missed my bed, my friends, my home. One day I slipped, no rope, no grip. Fell off fast and started to drift. No sound, no air, just a black abyss. Floating forever until I lay rest. Thought of earth, laughs, food, rain. Won't feel those things again. What is felt now is a black ocean vast. No one is to come. All that is left is to say goodbye.
Damn.
Right?
Right, that's good.
What? I mean, just cool. All right. And
He, it's not an amazing poem, but it absolutely captures the idea of being away on an alien planet, away from home, working.
yeah,
The it just it's wild that if I was a
yeah,
teacher, I'd be proud to get that from somebody.
yeah. I told the kid, I emailed him. This was after, I got it after his last period with me. I emailed him back like, man, you got a soul of a poet. Don't ever stop writing. Just keep going. And this isn't the first thing he's done. Like this is clearly something he does, And it's like, this is great. This is fantastic, dude. Keep going. The other one, this was the best one. This is the one I ended up sharing with Lisa, if you remember that chat a while back.
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Um, all right, here it is. So I'll just read the prologue. They say silence is louder on Mars, not because there's more of it, but because there is nothing else. No birds to squabble, no oceans to hush, no trees to rustle along with the gust of wind, only the hum of machines that keep us alive and the steady breath of people who've learned to live in glass. I was born under a dome, beneath a sky that has never changed, rust red like dried blood and memory. And then it goes on, like, and the whole story, like, it's about a person who's writing down the lore of her people, and she imagines like marriage, funeral, like all kinds of rituals, and like there's lines on here, like, and it's focused on the ecosystem, because like survival would be the key thing, right? Right,
Right.
like all the oxygen and food, and she, like, here's one of my favorite lines. Love on Earth was a feeling. Love on Mars is an ecosystem. Like, what?
That's
And this is one
good.
of these. This is one of, but like it's cheesy, and I get it. But like this is one of these. This is one of these like 15-year-old quiet kids who like rarely spoke, and then just like check out this line. On Earth, soil was something you walked on. Here, it's something we have to build by hand. What? It's just cool, man. So at the end of the day, it's about like what you said. I'm not working. I'm not working on their brains. All right, they can work on that in their English class. I get to work on what's between their ribs, inside their chest. That's a
Right.
way more. And I mean, no one does that. No one does that in public schools. It's all just pass the test and do this and do that and do this. And I'm like, you know, I'm
Like
I'm 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 Gandalf hitting Theoden in the face with his stick.
to get a
I'm gonna
job,
I'm gonna
get a job,
nah,
do this, you know what I mean? Yeah. No, man,
nope. Yeah, I'm
like
exactly. Yeah, it's not go get a job and do this and pass that test. No, I'm looking at them going, perhaps your hands would remember their strength if they grip their sword. Like, whoa,
right,
okay,
right.
come on, like trying to just guys go
It's like
live.
how I remember
No,
that story. I chimped out about everybody reading the sword of Welleran. I was like,
yes,
just you need to wear the cape and grab the sword, because there's
Yep.
an echo of the heroes of the past in us, and they just have to be unlocked. They have to be remembered. And it is our job to help the young people remember that they're not individual atomized molecules completely separate from that they are part of this river of, history and culture and, this greater body in the universe and in, the eternal world, and they are very much important as part of the whole because they are part of the whole. I think so much of, my education, young education, whether it was in school or cultural through media and, like an osmosis of the surrounding culture, was this focus on the individual. It was always like, what is your idea? What is your idea, bro? Or like, and so much of it was like people that thought differently or people that, and that's good. It's good to have a certain level of individualism to yourself, right? But what's very important, I think, for education, and I'm saying like the greater body of formal education, is that education has to teach you how to be part of the greater body. You know,
Yeah.
like
There
I,
should be a level of cultural education. How
right,
how should
right.
you live? There must be some philosophy. Must be some theology. There must be some religion in it going. How are you supposed to live? Not just what are you supposed to know? What are you supposed to know how to do?
Right.
What makes you a part of the community, a worthwhile part of the community?
Yeah, like what makes you a human? And this, like,
Right.
it's like,
Yes, exactly.
in a way, it's like this is what we present. I, as a teacher, as an educator, you're representative of Western civilization to these children, right? You're
Hmm.
one of them. Not
Yep.
all, they should have church and they should have family and that kind of stuff, right? But you're one of them, one of the most important ones, though. And your job is to present this body of history and culture and traditions through the ages, right? And then you
Right.
have to guide them into becoming part of that through knowledge initiation. And I mean that was the whole point of education, right? The whole point of education was to learn how to be a person. You know what I mean? How to learn how to be a person and how to continue learning, how to learn how to continue learning how to be a person for the rest of your life, Um, and somewhere along the line, probably I think in like the 50s and 60s, with a lot of postmodern kind of educational ideas, we lost that thread, where we started pumping out economic units, individual economic units, or you know,
Yeah.
the human equivalent of those like snack packs is basically what we turned our students into, and that where graduation doesn't matter anymore, or in the proms don't matter anymore, and none of that stuff matters, right? And people go, "Oh, those are stupid, frivolous things." No, they're not stupid, frivolous things. Do you remember that Indian jackass around Christmas that was like, the Indian immigrant students, they're studying 20 hours a day. They're not
Oh,
caring about who's going to prom or not or whatever. No, idiot.
Ramaswamy?
Yeah, the prom is just as important as the math,
Yeah.
because that's how you build a community. That's where you meet your wife, your girlfriend, that's how you build families and friendships. And, schools aren't there to make you an economic unit so you can, type away at like Excel spreadsheets for the rest of your life. You fucking bug man, they're there to make you into, they're there to make you into a person, you know? They're to give you
Yeah.
the tools. And these people are not persons. All right. These people are bugmen. All right. They're just
Yeah.
individual bugs. Um, but yeah, you're doing it. You're doing it, man. I mean,
Good.
if my kid came home and like said, "Oh, you know, uh, teacher Sobani, Mr. Sobani, like made us do these poems, and here's what I wrote," and I'd be like, I think he should, fail you a grade so you can redo his class again because I don't want you to spend all 4 years with him. Um,
Yeah, I think a way to say this, and thank you, by the way. I appreciate that. I'm very much trying to do what I think is correct, and I'm not overlooking the fact that again, at the end of the day, I am extraordinarily lucky to be at a public school that our assistant principal goes, education hasn't improved on any ideas over the past 2,000 years. The same stuff that worked back then works now. So let's just do that and flush the rest down the toilet. He said that in front of the entire everybody. That was like his message to us was like, guys, we're just going to do what works, what's always worked. That's it. I mean, what? Really? And I
Right.
know this guy knows what he means by that. Like, I know what he's saying. He means what you think he means. It's like, holy smoke. So, anyway, I'm just lucky. So, I'm taking advantage of it. But, like, to take that, like the poems, like that kind of thing, man. So, I've been reading Fellowship of the Ring, right? Shall we end with some Lord of the Rings screaming?
Absolutely.
Okay. Absolutely. Why not, right? But it's been a long time since I've read it. And if anybody has not read it in a very long time, I would strongly recommend you do.
The prose is
Uh,
too hard, bro.
no, dude, the prose is amazing. Are you kidding? This prose is spectacular. This is great stuff. If the prose is too difficult, skill issue. So anyway, but I'm reading it, and one of the things that this is kind of what it's like in the movies. The movies are okay. The movies are fine. The movies are cool. Like it's fine. But think about how the movies treat Gandalf, Boromir, and Aragorn, right? Boromir is kind of craven, right? Gandalf really doesn't show up. He's not seen as kind of a threat really until Two Towers. And Aragorn, he has this whole character arc. They don't reforge the sword until Return of the King,
Right.
right? And I get it. They're trying to tell the story to in a film, in the books, Tolkien has tons of time to really lay this stuff out. And it's clear that the guys who are going to go through the character development are the four hobbits, right? Those are the guys they're going on the hero's journey. All these other guys, these are supporting characters that they're going to run into. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously they're important, all that kind of stuff. Um, and the movies just don't have time, right? Which, is kind of like school these days. We don't have time. We don't allow the time. We have to make the economic widgets. So we end up losing things. We end up losing the truth of what we're trying to teach the students. And these three characters in the book, I mean, I'm just at the point where they got trapped on the mountain, right? And they got snowed out, and they had to get their way out. Just to go back from there, Boromir is straight up like, I'm just going to dig us out. Aragorn,
Right.
come on, let's go. They're snowed in. The guy digs them out with his bare hands and then carries the hobbits across a snowdrift.
Right. He's a boss in the books.
What? Boromir he's like, he even makes a joke. He's like, at one point, he's like, you might have had better success with a smaller man with a shovel, but unfortunately, all I had were my arms. Bro, settle down. I mean, the guy just amazing. Go back even a little further, and you've got Aragorn when they're at the council, and Aragorn's telling Boromir what he's been up to. He's like, yeah, well, you're all out there enjoying the thing with Gondor. I'm out in the woods with other rangers, literally slaughtering the enemy for however many decades. The guy's like, what, 97 or something by that point, or whatever it is. And like, he just accepts that the time has come for the king to go to war, and he
It's
reforges the sword, and
time.
he's like, let's go. It's like, oh my god. I mean, Aragorn's already this incredible baller. And then Gandalf was my favorite part. I mean, after he escapes Saruman, gets Shadowfax, starts running. This is Gandalf the Grey, by the way. Okay, so this is before he dies and reincarnates, or not reincarnates, but comes back as, Jesus Christ the White. I mean, Gandalf the White, right? He he's running around on Shadowfax. He's hunting the riders. He's hunting the Black Riders. He's looking for them, right? Wait, what? And then when they get to Weathertop, it's the middle of the day, and there's this great line where he's like, "They would not dare approach me in my wrath." Like Gandalf is pissed, and the riders are like, "Nah, nah, we're not taking this guy at night." And then what? He spends like 2 or 3 days on Weathertop fighting the Nazgul. What? He's like, unfortunately, I had to withdraw. Dude, you just stood up to them. Like they saw, like the fellowship saw the fight out in the distance. They're like, what's all that out there? Just Gandalf beating the shit out of like
Just
the demon.
yeeting demons left and right.
Just low key. Gandalf the Grey is this terrifying guy, right? But he's just like, so anyway, it's it's hilarious because with education, public school is the Lord of the Rings movies, right? There's some in there, but I want to show him the books. I want to show him the book Gandalf. Now this dude is check this guy out. Like, yeah, nah. You think he's just some old wizard? No. This dude is terrifying. All right.
He rides out there, with a sword in hand, sword and staff in hand, and he's yeeting orcs left and right.
Yeah. Oh, or like the river. When they go across the river and the Nazgul try to make their way across the river and then Elrond sends the flood down the river and Gandalf's like, "Yeah, I added the white horses with the white riders on the water. I hope I didn't overdo it." Just flexing on the most terrifying creatures in the books. Right? Everybody's scared of these dudes and Gandalf is just flexing on them. And it's not even like halfway through they're just barely through the first book.
Right.
It's awesome. It's fun. But it's looking at that and going, guys, kids, that's what you are. That's what you can be. You are very young. You have a long way to go. But don't pretend that like you're just gonna get out of here and just go do an email job. I mean, you can if you want, but come on.
It's not worth
You
it.
do better than that.
It's not
Nah,
worth
you do
it.
better than that.
Not
You're
even,
not worth it.
not
Yeah,
even
you're not
Sam.
worth that.
Not even Sam, who wanted to go back to the Shire the whole time. He came back and he became the mayor of the Shire.
Yeah. Yeah, like what, 14 kids?
Yeah, he didn't go back and become the
What do we call that? A
gardener.
hobbit's dozen? Yeah, no.
He became the
Yeah.
mayor.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said that, the reincarnation, but really, the return of Gandalf and
Oh yeah.
the whole thing is that uh, in a way, like Tolkien was really good at the concept of typology, and typology is something that like you can do a little bit of quick reading on it, but typology is basically in Christian theology and like specifically in the Orthodox Church, but like reading the Bible is the idea that there are types of things, right? Like there's categories of things and
Yeah.
types as in things are like the other or in the mold of. So like, for example, like a type is like an original pattern, a model or mold, right?
Hmm.
Um, so in a lot of biblical reading, you will read the Old Testament using the ideas of typology, and you'll find types of Christ, types
Hmm.
of Virgin Marys, types of this, and you connect the two to the New Testament, right? You kind of like, it connects the two, right? Like, so for example, Tolkien understood this very well, and that's why, you watch, look, read Lord of the Rings, or watch Lord of the Rings, and you're like, oh, that's kind of like Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because all the because all the characters in Lord of the Rings are Christian typology, right? They're Christian molds, right? They're not one for one representations, right? They're
Right.
not
Yep. No.
allegories or symbols, right? They're molds, right? So, for example, Aragon the king is a type of Christ, right?
Yeah.
He is, Christ the king, right? And he even heals people with his hands, and
Right.
like he's the returning king. Come on, guys! Like there's an entire, religion based on a book about a king returning, right?
Yeah.
Right? That's Aragon, right? But there's
Yep.
also other types of Christ in it. There's, Gandalf himself, in a way, is a type of Christ figure. But I really see Gandalf as more of a Old Testament prophet type,
Yeah.
right?
I've I've thought of him as that, and then after he becomes the White, he kind of turns into this like Holy Spirit sort of.
Right,
He's
right,
just running around everywhere by that point, like just bolstering the ranks exactly where it needs to be at the exact proper time.
right. He's almost as a he like I think he comes off as a Old Testament prophet in a way,
Yeah.
and then almost as what's his name? What's his name? John the Baptist kind of figure, like
Oh,
John
that's what I
the
was thinking of.
right, John
That's funny. Yeah.
uh, coming in before Christ, because in a way he Gandalf belongs to the old world.
Yeah.
He's in the Old Testament of Lord of the Rings of the Middle Earth, right? Because he leaves, right? He leaves.
Yeah, he does.
He leaves with the elves, and he's there from the beginning, right? So he's kind of like he's not truly part of the kingdom, the dominion of man that Aragon brings forth, right? Um,
Yep.
so he has this like Old Testament kind of vibe to him, you know. I mean, who are the hobbits? Us, right?
Yeah, just the normal people. The normal
Right, just
people.
normal people, right? Just us. I wish I was a good hobbit, you know. I'm a little bit too neurotic. I'm probably like a neurotic human, some sort, you know. I'm
Yeah.
probably the elf that slept in and didn't get to make it to the last boat.
Yeah, right.
Being
Exactly.
like,
Or
oh
or where
man,
the Saxville Baggins is,
yeah.
where the really annoying ones that nobody really likes. But it's
the,
okay. We'll put up with it.
we're like oh crap, those Shire Stag Black Ibis Bagginses are
Yeah,
coming,
right.
steal our silverware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Black Ibis Social Club reporting to you out of Bree. Where that drunk dude at the where what's his name?
The prancing pony over
Yeah, the guy,
there.
the
Yeah.
prancing pony who forgets to give the letter to Frodo, and it's just
Oh man,
complete
sorry,
moron.
bro, Mr. Underwood. I don't know.
Please don't melt me, Gandalf. Please don't
Yeah,
melt me.
yeah, that's
Anyway,
us right there. But yeah, man, I love those books. I'm actually gonna start. I'm gonna start reading the space trilogy soon. So we're probably gonna be talking a
nice.
lot about that.
Ooh.
I'm actually finishing I'm finishing. I'm currently reading again my favorite novel, one of my favorite novels of all time. That's not the Brothers Karamazov, right? Which is my favorite novel of all time. But I'm
Yes.
currently reading the Magus by John Fowles because I'm going to be a guest on a podcast to talk about it. Right? I don't want to reveal too much. It's a cool podcast.
Cool.
Uh,
Cool. So
uh,
not this podcast. Okay.
Not
All
this
right. Yeah.
podcast.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
Not as cool as ours. Okay, but
Oh,
like
I was going the other direction, but
oh
fair
no,
enough.
no, 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 way not as cool as ours, right? Um, but hint, I don't want to spill it, but previous guest of ours podcast, um, and we're going to be talking about the Magus, and it's a book that I'm pretty well read on all the books by John Fowles. I own copies in hardcover of all his books, and I've read his biography, so I'm kind of a fanboy. So I got invited to do that.
Nice.
Um,
That'll be fun.
we have a guest next week. We'll talk about that next week. We have a guest after that and a guest after that, and we're all fully scheduled. Um,
Guests.
Guest, man. And then, we'll be doing more solo episodes because I really enjoy these. I enjoy just you and I talking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think they're fun. And then
It's
also,
a
what
palate cleanse. It's a palate
it
cleanse,
is a palate cleanse,
Who do we
because
have coming on next week? Who do we have coming on next
I'll
week?
tell you right now, it's one of our.
I don't pay attention to these things because I'm bad at my job. So.
It's Mr. McGinty. It's Jason.
Oh, cool.
Right, so we're gonna do that.
That's gonna be a bro outcast. That's gonna be
Yeah,
fun.
I might not be hosting it. Constance Alexandra might be hosting it. So
Oh no.
my
Please don't do that to me. Please don't do that to me. I don't want to do I hate computers. I hate AI. I don't want
Me
anything to
too.
do. I don't want to have anything to do with fake, any of that stuff.
All
I
right,
like being
I'll become a
sorry.
transhuman on Twitter only.
Oh no. Yeah, just do it on Twitter where it belongs. Those people deserve the terror. I don't. I don't want it. I'm too old. Okay. All right.
But no, yeah, we'll have him come on, and we have a bunch of new guests. Um, And then, lots of stuff planned like always, and lots of shit posting on the Substack, lots of stuff. If you guys listening, if you subscribe and, become members of Black Ibis Social Club, you will get an email that has the little QVC code for the chat, the Telegram chat. Please, join us in the Telegram chat because we listen, as you heard today, we try to answer as many questions and there's a pretty good
Oh yeah,
conversation going on in there.
always. Yeah.
If you, if you're already a paid subscriber and you did not get the link, I did make a post like a few weeks ago, so you can kind of scroll through the Substack and
Re-up it. Re-up it.
yeah, I'll reshare it again just because some people have missed it. And yeah, I think that was a good one today. It's 7 o'clock here in South Carolina and 7 o'clock in Florida. So I think we'll call it a night. Anything
Sounds
else
good.
before we go?
Uh, Not that I can think of. I mean, I'd ask about the Judy and Pan Am question, but there's nobody here to ask it. So
Yeah, and I'm pretty much starting to change my mind on it, so it's okay.
really? Whoa, hold up, hold up.
Maybe I've been going to church too much, and Panam's feels like she's more, she's more
Interesting.
ride and die. I think you might be right. I don't
Okay,
know.
maybe the
No, shut
waifu
the
with the
hell up.
waifu
I'm
wings.
lying. Wrong. Judy for life.
Judy for life. Judy for life. I was thinking about replaying Cyberpunk
Me
soon.
too. There's
I've been
actually don't do it yet because I think there might be some new content coming out. I think
really
I think I got
no.
an article spammed across my thing, and it seems to be like they're decided to do some extra
Oh,
something
you're
or other.
kidding.
I'm not
That's amazing.
sure. Have you been
Actually,
play?
actually, maybe for the next podcast season, we do a playthrough of Cyberpunk and like play it together. I don't know if you can do that, or at least like talk about why Fisto's journey is so much morally superior to Alex's journey because he knows what he's. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, have you been playing any games at all? Have you been playing anything?
Oh, actually, I have been enjoying Civilization 5
Hmm.
with the Vox Populi mod. Now, let me explain what that is. So it's actually kind of funny. I'm a longtime Civilization fan from like when I was a kid. I played it, Civilization 1 back in 1991. And for anybody who doesn't know, this is like the original, like one of the original 4X games where it's just it takes history and turns it into a game and you lead a civilization through the ages of history and try to win the game by sending somebody to space or whatever. Anyway, it's a great time, right? It's complete history buff crack. Okay. But Civilization 7, like Civilization 6 was pretty good. I liked it. I had fun with it. It's kind of somewhat controversial to enjoy that game, I guess. But I guess Civilization 7 is just a complete and utter trash fire. I didn't see
Yeah.
anything in it that was even remotely appealing. And even worse is they microtransaction the shit out of it. So it's like you got to pay, it's they basically ruined it as far as I can tell. So whatever.
Is that the one
Well,
with is
apparently
that the one with like Rosa Parks, the warlord, or something like
yeah,
that?
Rosa Parks leading the Mongolians or whatever. Like, come on, just get out of here. Anyway, the thing that really actually annoyed me, that stuff I could probably have dealt with, but when they like chop out entire chunks of the game like and make it DLC right off the bat, it's just like, okay, I'm old. I don't want anything to do with any of that stuff. So anyway, what was fun about that then is that somehow I stumbled upon this Vox Populi mod, which it's a community mod for Civilization 5 that was made like years ago, back when Civ 5 was, the big thing. And they essentially took everything in Civ 5. Well, first off, they made the AI passable. So like it's a challenge. Like it's a lot of fun. But the cool thing they did was take all of the civilizations and really retool them and they feel like the civilizations more so than any other any other of the Civ games I played. Like a great example of this is like they took America and they redid the Manifest Destiny perk, and it's just expansion. Just buy all the land. It's all mine. Like I'm taking everything. Like, and it's just oh my gosh, this is like America, like expanding across North America. It's all mine. Deal with it. The Japanese, dude, you would love it because the Japanese are the best. Like they get culture and great work, and you build up a culture by just kicking everybody's ass. and they make it feel like really Japanese, like even down to like the dojo and like Bushido and like they bring all that stuff in. It's like these things have some real like somebody thought this stuff through is what I'm trying to say. And they really made it like interesting. So that's what I've been playing on my summer break. I really didn't expect it, but I've completely succumbed to just one more turn itis. So it is what it is. But yeah,
Nice.
that's what I've been doing as far as games are concerned. It
That's
was a good
great.
time, man.
I've
It's a
been
good time.
playing. I've been playing
Yeah.
Daisy. I found my favorite video game company right now, and that's Bohemia
Yeah.
Interactive. They're these guys out of Czech, these Czech guys, and I think
Yeah.
they're either like Czech or Slovakian. I can't remember. One of those two,
Slavic, don't worry about it.
same
Master race
thing.
Slavs, right?
And they're the two games I've been playing are both of them DayZ, which is that
Yeah.
brutal, realistic
Yeah.
game where like you're like, oh look, another player, and then you get shot in the face by him. Like, oh thanks guys.
Or you get enslaved by other players and that's winning the game.
Yeah, well, basically, I've been playing on this winter map, which is like it's basically like a map of like Shaolin Island, basically, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
in the winter, and like every time you like play. If your character dies, you start all over, like from
Yeah, yeah,
scratch,
yeah.
and you
Yeah.
randomly spawn somewhere on the island,
Yep.
and you spawn and you have a bandage, like a bandage and a kitchen knife. That's the
Oh,
only
jeez.
things you have. And right away you're in sub-zero freezing weather, right? So you're gonna die. You're gonna die of exposure. So you gotta like run and you have to like basically like scrape bark off a tree to like get enough to like make like a fire, get some sticks. You gotta break into a house and like find a stove and like put some sticks together and some bark and hopefully you find enough to like make food, and then you might find some food but it's frozen, so you have to actually like heat the food, like to defrost the food and able to eat it. And then the whole time there's zombies everywhere that like if you run into them they'll kill you, but also there's players, so if you light a fire, now there's a smoke
Right.
coming out of the house, and some dude's gonna come and shotgun you in the face and take that fish you just spent five freaking 50 minutes catching and cooking. And
Right.
it's a game that like if you like are the kind of person that doesn't like dying and stuff, it's not for you,
Oh, yeah, no.
because
No.
like you'll spend like 6 hours like getting all this cool gear. You're like, oh, I found, I broke into a police station. I have like a flak jacket and I've got a shotgun
Yeah,
with like
I'm
shells.
I'm filthy casual right here, so
Yeah,
I'm
when
on the
you're
same
like, oh,
car
I'm
with you.
awesome, and you walk out the door and some dude snipes you in the head. You're like, oh, well, I'm dead. Cool. Like that's it. Start again. And
That's what I get for waking up in the morning.
yeah, that's part of the fun. Like last time I
Part
played.
of the fun.
Well, it was like a good example. Last time I played, because I have my headset on, I'm playing it on Xbox, and
Uh,
I'm running around, and I found like these sheep that were walking around, and I like beat them to death, and I like had a knife, so I like I got a bunch of meat from them, and I was really excited because I'm like, oh, I've got like fresh meat I can cook, and that will last me for a while in my inventory. And I see this dude, and he's like chopping down a tree, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'm good. Don't shoot me." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And like I go, "I got some food. You have a fire. Let's team up, okay? I'll give you some of my meat." So he's like, "All right, cool." So we sit down in this little hut, this little town, and we're making a fire and we're cooking the meat. And this other dude rolls up, and I wanted to shoot this dude, but the guy that was with me was he's being a nice guy, he must have been new or something. And he opens the
Nice.
door, and the dude just like freaking machine guns him, dude, right? And I'm like, no, new friend, I never even got your name.
Oh
And
no.
I shoot him through the window, and the dude dies, but he gets a shot on me, so I'm like bleeding, and I couldn't get my bandages out in time, and I bled to death, and my meat just went bad because it just
Man.
burnt on the.
I feel
That's
like I feel like I feel like it's a very Slavic game experience right there.
It is. It's basically
It is
the
very right.
Slav simulator.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Your
what I've been
Russian
playing.
side's coming out hard right now.
Yeah, but I just
That's
enjoy
awesome.
it. My wife won't play with me because she says it's too depressing and it's too like anger inducing. And I'm like, she's like, I don't understand why you play that. Like it's just miserable. Like why would you want to be miserable in a video game? Like, No, I like freezing to death and dying of bacterial infection in a video game, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. This is called a good time.
Like I like scrounging for tetracycline pills, you know? Like I need it. All right, guys.
Nice.
If you
All
want to
right.
play
Yeah.
DayZ with me, send me a message and we can hang out and share
Yeah,
call.
man.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. Please like, share,
Yes.
and subscribe. Please subscribe so you can join us on the cool Telegram channel and I can ask you questions. And we will talk to you guys next week.
See you,
Good
folks.
night.